Hello, welcome to Face to Face with the Bull with Mr. Mayo Schmidt, Executive Chairman of Brazil Potash. Today is going to be an interview in English. Mr. Mayo Schmidt is a seasoned executive with over 30 years in leadership in global agriculture, energy, and supply chain management. He most recently served as chairman of VersaCode, Canada's largest temperature-sensitive supply chain company. From 2013 to 2021, he held key roles on Nutrient Company, including chairman and interim CEO, where he chaired the merger of Agrium and Potash Corporation. As CEO of Hydro One from 2015 to 2018, he oversaw one of Canada's largest IPO and achieved significant cost savings. From 2000 to 2012, he transformed Viterra Inc. into a $7.3 billion global agribusiness through major acquisitions and international expansions. Earlier in his career, he held senior roles at General Mills and Conagra. Thank you very much for being here, Mr. Mayo.
It's a pleasure to be with you today, Pablo.
Okay, we're here at B3 for an important event, the launch of the PDR of Brazil Potash in B3. So now Brazilians will be able to invest in this company that's listed overseas through here, right?
Yes.
So, okay, so Mr. Mayo, please tell us what Brazil Potash, or Brazil Potash in English, what it is and what's the goal of Altaz's project?
Well, the important thing is it's a critical mineral that exists here in Brazil that will support food security for the world, and it secures Brazil's position in terms of supply chain management for the potash to produce agriculture crops.
All right. Well, the company is Canadian but operates in Brazil. What's the strategic logic behind that?
Well, certainly it is that with the growing population in the world today and the discovery of this important mineral, that we can produce this mineral to secure the production and increasing production of Brazil crops for supply to the world. And today, in an era of supply chain disruption, it becomes important that you have your own supply to secure that production that will be exported to many countries around the world.
Yeah, you're mentioning the mineral. What's the importance of potash for the Brazilian agriculture?
Well, it sustains the plant growth and it secures plant growth, and it's responsible for probably 50% of the production of plants around the world. So it is a critical mineral that allows not only the plant growth, but the volume of production that a plant produces for of crops.
And also protects the crops. How does potash helps to protect crops against heat, floods, and also how does it ensure higher land productivity?
Well, it creates a resilience in the plant, and it creates that critical mineral that supports the plant growth and plant life. And when you're producing on soil that is depleted through multiple crop productions, it replenishes the nutrients in the soil.
Okay, but you mentioned once in the past to us that Brazil has the potential for up to 3 harvests per year, but relies on the proper use of fertilizers. Can you explain that relationship a little further?
Yes, when you, of course, they're growing crops, and the nutrients go into the plant, you harvest the plant, you have to replenish the nutrients in the soil. And so what this does with potash, it is a replenishment of that nutrient, and we're working with Brazil's farmers and have contractually work with the farmers to make sure that they have these critical nutrients for their crops.
Well, today Brazil imports 94% of the fertilizer that we use, right? You mentioned to me. What are the risks of depending on countries like Russia or Belarus and Canada?
Well, when you think about the supply chain, first of all, it's 110 days away from halfway around the world to get product here. So timing really is critical. Secondly is in the supply chain, we have issues in geopolitical conflicts. We have port strikes, we have rail strikes, we have a changing event here with the Panama Canal in terms of how that's going to work out in terms of supply chain. So this is a product that is 2 days away by barge from the major production area, the Mato Grosso, in Brazil, as compared to over 100 days of supply chain and, of course, the carbon that's required between rail and ocean-going vessels to get that product in market. So we bring it halfway around the world. We go through multiple storage situations onto the ship, and then we wait at ports that are congested because of other supply chain, and then we unload into storage and then reload it back into halfway across the country to get it in market, as compared to this product is under the ground in market in the agriculture sector.
Okay. You mentioned the geopolitical risks, crisis. How does the war in Ukraine affect this market, specifically the war in Ukraine?
Well, it's been, you've seen the volatility in pricing. We've gone from a product that would generally trade at $350 a ton in market to over $1,200 a ton because of the supply chain issues. And it's a disruption in terms of shipping, availability of ships, the insurance of ships, to be able to, at origin, to load these ships and then sail them halfway around the world in market. And then, of course, there's also the sanctions that are changing daily that also have to be considered. So it's not security of supply for a critical mineral for plant life in market for Brazil to be able to support 3 crops a year.
Yeah, so I understand as a pressure of prices up also. Right? So what's talking about cost, what's the cost difference between importing potash, for example, from Canada or Russia, and producing it locally through your project?
Well, it's over $130 a ton, and just to give a perspective, we can produce in country and transport at less than the cost of transportation alone from a foreign country.
Okay, so that's a big difference.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah. So the second large potash reserve in the world is in Altazes. It's here in Brazil. Just 2 hours from Manaus. Manaus is an important hub here in Brazil. What was the process? How was the process like to obtain the environmental license needed to explore Altazes?
Well, it was a period of 7 years where we had undertaken considerable work and had secured all of the permits, 21 permits necessary and appropriate for producing the potash in market to secure the supply, to assure the environment. And also in this process, we've also been able to secure access to hydroelectric. So this project will be 80% carbon neutral. So from hydroelectric production, it'll be the cleanest potash produced in the world today.
Impressive, impressive. And how are your forecasts? For example, can the project supply up to 20% of the Brazilian demand for fertilizer, for potash? And if so, what's the timeline to get there, to get to 20%, for example?
Yes. So to your good point, we will produce up to 20% of the demand in Brazil in the first phase. And there, of course, development after that can occur. Today, with, as you mentioned, Brazil importing 95% of this critical mineral in a supply chain era where we've got disruptions at home, it gives us the opportunity to be certain that we can be there every day in just-in-time delivery and to support the production of the critical crops that are grown here in Brazil.
Yeah. So the agriculture market here in Brazil is very important,
yes.
Super important for our GDP. So I have a question related to that. What's your estimation? What's the estimated annual production volume, and what would be its impact in the agriculture GDP of Brazil?
Well, first of all, it'll be a 6% increase in the GDP. Secondly, when you think about the production, it'll be 2.5 million tons in the first phase of production that will supply 20% of the market here in Brazil, with an opportunity to expand that. So it's a 24-year supply that can grow to over 100 years if the company chooses to continue to develop and secure additional minerals.
Oh, impressive,
Yes.
Mr. Mayo. So, Mr. Mayo, how exactly, now I'm curious, how is the potash extracted? Is it like, for example, like oil extraction? How does it work?
Well, that's a really important point. The interesting thing is the extraction with really the plant sits on as much as 34 acres or 13 hectares.
Okay.
So it's a very, very small footprint for what it can do. So it's a shaft that goes 800 meters under the ground, and then the potash is in seams, so it's ancient seabeds from millions of years ago, hundreds of millions of years ago. And then the potash is extracted with a combination of salt. It's brought to the surface using no chemicals at all. The hot water alone, the potash is separated from the salt. The salt ultimately goes back underground into the chambers where it was extracted from, and the mineral of potash goes onto a barge. In 2 days, it's immediately into production areas for crops.
Wow, and how does the separation of the salt and the potash happens down deep in the earth?
Well, in fact, it doesn't. So the minerals extracted and brought up to the surface. The plant that sits on 34 acres or 13 hectares, it's used hot water to separate the two products. And the salt is just table salt. It's a natural mineral that's under the earth. Okay. And then the potash stays above and is loaded into barges, and the salt goes back into the chambers of which it was extracted.
So you place the salt back again?
Yes, leaving no footprint on the earth ultimately, and it's all natural products.
Oh, awesome. Very impressive also. So your transportation logistic also seems to be a key differentiator. Can you explain how you manage to reduce costs compared to international competitors?
Well, the competitors, of course, are using rail and storage and ships to bring product for over 100 days away from halfway around the world. It's just
so also there is a time length very important.
Oh, which is also, and the time is affected by port congestion, where ships sit and pay demurrage or cost sitting offshore waiting to unload. And in our case, we're able to bring the products to the surface, separate it, use just-in-time delivery. We're literally 7 kilometers from the river. We load a barge. 2 days we're in market and distributing into the farm and agriculture communities. So when you think about 2 days versus over 100 and all of the carbon that it takes to get in market between trains and ships versus our hydroelectric supported project in market next to the Mato Grosso, which raises over 45% of the production in Brazil, which is critical for the world's food supply.
So also recently, Brazil Potash, you raised $30 million for the company. How are these funds being used?
Well, they're being used to prepare the land for the 34 acres or 13 hectare for the plant site. It'll be used for the road improvement to get to the river. And then, of course, we've got a relationship with the farming community for barges, which we'll discuss, which is rather important to us.
Okay. Well, it was in the end of last year, right? It was the first IPO of a Brazilian operating company since 2021. How did the market receive it? How did you feel the Brazilian people?
Well, one is very, very positive for the market and particularly for food security. Unfortunately, a time of disruption in the markets, a change in geopolitical leadership, a change in global conflict, it's created a real pressure on any entrepreneurial opportunity that's occurring today, and we've experienced that as well, but it hasn't changed the value proposition of this product that is going to be necessary to grow crops for the growing food production needs in the world.
Okay, so well, today we are here in B3, the Brazilian Stock Exchange, to launch the BDR of GRO, which is the listed asset of Brazil Potash in New York, right? Can you please explain a little bit about the BDRs?
Well, yes, in fact, this is a really strategic and critical opportunity for people here in Brazil to participate in agriculture, which is the largest GDP producer in the country, in a critical mineral that is entering the market to support food production, which is one of the, food, energy, and water for human life is critically important. So we're bringing that here to Brazil and making it available to the Brazilian population to participate with us and support not only the financial returns for them individually, but also do something that for humanitarian effects to support food production.
Exactly, to be partnered with Brazil Potash.
Absolutely.
And also Amagi is your partner, right? How important is this partnership?
Yes, it's been a wonderful partnership with Amagi. Not only do they buy the potash from us for their plant production, but they also provide the barges, and those barges are taking grain production to the coast for export. They're coming back empty, and we can fill those with fertilizer to support their crop production. So they've demonstrated incredible leadership in tying our production to the farm economy.
Oh, so yeah, they're agriculture guys. How does there was a national fertilizer plan launched on 2022. Yes. How did that plan influence your project?
Well, first of all, it was demonstrating market leading by declaring early, prior to any other country doing so, that potash is a critical mineral. And the government of Brazil taking the leadership to recognize the importance of food production here in Brazil for the world, where we have probably 900 million people on the planet that are facing starvation today, and growing populations. To take that leadership, declare this product a critical mineral, and assist us and support us in the development of this important project.
So what are the next major milestones for 2025, 2026?
Well, it's one is we're preparing the surface. Secondly, we'll engage in bidding for the shaft development, and then the building of 100 miles and 160 kilometers of power lines that will come from the hydroelectric support for the plant. The important thing about that is not only the hydroelectric will support our plant, but it will take 200,000 residents in our communities local to the potash production off of diesel generation and put them on hydroelectric power. And the government is just thrilled about that opportunity.
Obviously. Great news for
Yes.
Brazil, for us. So in 3 years, it will be full operational, right? So how do you see Brazil Potash in 2028, for example?
Well, what my view would be that with the development of the mine and the production and the relationship that we have with our farmers, and we've already covered contracts for 15 years in the future, so it's not a case where we have produced it and then go find buyers. We've already committed to the buyers. Amaji has bought 15 years of supply. So the vertical integration of this and the production is all seamless and is all complete. So it's really just a matter of getting the shaft in, building the plant on the surface with a small footprint, and then getting the product into the barges going into the farm community.
Okay, good, great news, good news. So what legacy do you plan to leave for Brazil with this project?
Well, I think it's a great opportunity to recognize, as government has in a critical mineral, the importance of food production and their leadership role in this world today. And with the growing population and the disruption between tariffs and other supply chain, this is an internal, unaffected by outside events that can secure that supply and grow production for our human population and deal with food insecurity in the world today.
Okay. So, well, if everything goes as planned, can Brazil finally stop being dependent on fertilizer importation?
Well, and you look at the first phase, we're 20%, second phase, and growing up to even 100-year supply. Absolutely can. It needs the support of the Brazilian population to get behind this. It needs government support to be successful, and we'll carry out our duty to deliver this product into the critical areas it needs for producing plants.
Okay, great. Thank you. I thank you for Brazil for helping us to stop to being dependent on this fertilizer from this places so far away. And thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so you that watched the Face-to-Face with the Bull with Mr. Mayo Schmidt from Brazil Potash. Thank you very much for your audience. Now we're gonna keep on bringing more informations of Brazil Potash. This is the beginning of a partnership between us. Thank you very much and see you next. Vai Tourinho, vai Potássio, valeu!